We say to America is be true to what you said on paper.
I wish that I...
Welcome back to At the Round Table with MAMLEO. I'm your host, Larry Ellison, in studio with my brothers from another. The doctor is in the house. Dr. Bradley is here with us. Good morning.
Well, you know, things are not all good from the neck up.
Okay.
Okay. It's not all good in America.
What's them blisters on your hand when you go home? We'll check with you next week.
It's gonna be tough, though.
Brother Rhodes is here. He's out there, and taking a little break. He'll be right back in with us as well. We want to thank our sponsor, The Money Store. For all your mortgage needs, give branch manager Cora Holbrook a call at area code 508-345-4726. That's 508-345-4726. Again, that's The Money Store where you want to get your money. Give her a call. Like I said, in studio, I have the honor and the privilege. Cruise Construction, absolutely. And Dr. Bradley had that number. We also want to thank our sponsor, Cruise Construction. That's why there's more than one of us here. For all your construction needs, give Cruise Construction a call. In fact, I should have wrote that number down, Dr. Bradley. But
Yeah, because I had just Googled it, brother, but I'm gonna get it for you very shortly.
Right, okay. So while Dr. Bradley is getting that number, for also
617-445-6901, 617-445-6901. They're located at 280 Warren Street in Roxbury.
All right, thank you. And also a reminder, Boston Praise Radio and TV is having their fundraising and talent search concert that's going to be next Sunday, April 27th at 6 p.m. here at Global Ministries Christian Church, 670 Washington Street. It's free to attend. It is a fundraiser, folks. You want to come in. That helps to support not just this broadcast, but all the broadcasts that you hear on here. Like I said, more than ever, we really need to have our voice heard. There's nowhere, it's not unfiltered. They don't get to tell us what we need to say here. This is us talking about us, things that impact us, and unapologetic for doing so. So again, that's Boston Praise Radio and TV fundraising next Sunday at 6 p.m. April 27th, right here at Global Ministries Christian Church here at 670 Washington Street. Like I said, I am honored and pleased to have in studio. This is Autism Month this month, but for a lot of our folks, a lot of families and stuff, autism is every day. It is not a month. It doesn't go away at the end of the month. They're impacted by it every day. And we felt like, we have folks who are close to us. Like I said, Tariq Chambers, who is an active detective with the Boston Police Department, a father, husband, who is here in studio. He is my little brother, and I love him as such. Appreciate him coming in. He has family members who have autism. And on the line is my other brother, who I have to also take care of. My other little brother, Claude DeFay, is on the line there. Another brother, Claude. Another brother.
Good morning.
I quit my full-time job
because of him.
I quit my full-time, because Claude became my full-time job.
Hey, brother, I just want to know who are these guys tailors, man? Who put these clothes together, man? They brother got some nice shoes, man.
Things have gotten better since we left.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I was like, what happened? I mean, man,
they got a contract. They got a pretty good contract.
Right.
Again, folks.
Too. I forgot. It's the fashion guy, man.
I mean,
that's why I didn't come in, man. So he
knew I was going to be here. You know what I mean? This guy coming in with a full head of hair, man. Look around.
Hey, I'm definitely outnumbered.
We should have brought Claude in.
Listen. This is my greatest claim to fame right here. We end all arguments with this. Hey, but do you have hair though?
Hey, listen, these brothers, like I said, are two men that I have a lot of love and respect for. I've known them over the years. I always say, you can pick your friends, you can't pick your family, but you can pick your friends and turn them into family. And that has been the most powerful thing. And they didn't even really see what I was doing with them, because the Tariq always says sometimes that the worst thing he did was getting to know me, right? Because you understand. He has told me that numerous times because
talking about honesty.
Right. Listen, I have to tell this quick story to folks because I think people understand is that when Tariq got made detective, and we're going to get into this autism, but I think I want to give a little background on my brothers here. Claude, I knew the department wrongfully terminated him when he was in the academy, and the superintendent at the time said he will never become a police officer in the Boston Police Department. And Claude, you're on what year now? Back in the Boston Police Department?
Man, this is this has happened in 2011, man. So roughly, was it 14 years now?
Okay.
And it's funny because when I was going through that whole ordeal, someone was like, you know what? You got to meet this brother. You got to meet this brother. I'm gonna bring you to him. And it's funny because I tell a story all the time, and I'm like, he brings it to the office. Of course, Larry doing his job, right? And then I walk into the MAMLEO office, and then I'm like, the first thing I say, I was like, damn, man, you look like my brother. Because really, everyone I know is my brother. He's light skinned, the same height, bald, everything. I'm like, hold on, Gerard? Because that's his name. And then, Lord to be known that literally since that day on, Larry really been my brother. We had an opportunity to work together, and obviously in school for 5 years. And the symbolic to this is like he literally, because his desk was behind me, so my brother really always had my back. All I had to do is turn around and be like, Larry, and then he was there for me, man.
It has really been an
thank
honor.
you, brother. Thank you for creating this platform.
Absolutely. And then Tariq, like I said, he and I and Claude, we worked together in the school unit. And Tariq is a brother who, like I said, he don't hold his words. And if something bothering him, he is going to let you know.
Especially if I love you.
Exactly. So Tariq got promoted to detective while he was in the unit. And early in his time there, we had an incident up at the school there, and it was kind of chaotic and stuff. And I was just kind of, hey, Tariq, you need to do this. And I don't think he had processed that he was no longer the patrolman in the unit, that he was now my partner, and that I was treating him as such, and that we didn't have a formal transition, right? So it didn't sit well with him because I remember that day I was that afternoon. It must have been stewing with him all day. He came looking for me. And I was.
We need to talk.
All right, I was at the bowling building, and and he came up. He says, "Yeah, we need to talk." And we went out in the hallway, and I said, "Listen, when you made detective, and he didn't. I said you transitioned from patrolman to detective. You are now my partner. Who I was talking to today was my partner, and this is what we needed to do to get this done. So and it was like this epiphany for him, but also because he's like, wow, my brother's talking to me, and that wasn't talking down.
No.
But he didn't understand that was the transition.
But due responsibility.
Most people would have harbored that and now felt like somehow I was not being respectful to them. And they would have never come. So that's just something about.
I tell you what, I think we've spoken about this a few times, but I want to make sure that I let everyone know how wonderful that made me feel that day, because when you have someone wearing the #1 badge around their neck and they're saying that we're partners now, man, that made me feel like a sense of acceptance that call it the black boy trauma, right? Where it's like you never really had, an immense amount of black men around that's like accepting of you, So in that moment, I just felt like, wow, like Larry Ellison accepts me as his peer, and I felt a tremendous amount of just pride in that moment,
And it's been love ever since, but sometimes people don't have that to get that off their chest, and that's why I really like to highlight that, so that people, if it's something that's wild, if you love this person enough, approach them and say, hey, this is wild, rather than deteriorate and tearing down a very good relationship. But while we're here today, it's Autism Month, but like I said, for these gentlemen, it's every single day that they said, I was just looking at some studies where it said, a few years ago, it was 1 in 20 kids are diagnosed with. Now it's 1 in 8. The numbers have gotten worse.
It's a pandemic, epidemic. Call it whatever you want, right? I remember when my wife and I became advocates for autism, right, in our minds and our hearts. I remember they were saying like autism is 1 in 100. And now it's like, who doesn't know somebody with autism today, right? Who doesn't?
Right.
It's the same, and you could even argue affecting more people than even cancer. It's a thing that shouldn't deter us as a community from having this conversation. I think it's a healthy conversation for us to have.
Well, I think and I'm glad you mentioned it in that way and frame it that way, because people think there's a stigma attached, right? And some people feel like somehow, especially parents, and some of them feel like there's something they did wrong, right? That they're the cause and effect of why their child might have autism, right? And Claude, I want to get to where you in this. Can you talk about that a little bit, Tariq, in how this has impacted your life, your wife, your family?
Well, I think the first thing that I must say, and I'm sure Claude will attest to this as well, is when you actually have a child with autism, while you are not a formal expert with a PhD or a degree in any sort of psychology or theology, whatever it is about autism, you are an expert, right? Because you live it every day. But how autism has affected me is this. I'll say this. When I was younger, I had Jalen very young.
Jalen is your son.
Jalen is my son. So I actually have two boys with autism. Okay. My wife and I, we've been married for 22 years. I love her immensely, right? But it has taken an extreme toll on who we are as a couple, right? We have our oldest son, Jalen, who's 18, and our youngest boy, Braden, who is now 10. And then we have two typical functioning kids, 16 and 5, right? How it has affected me is, even with all of that I'm saying, it has been the best thing that has ever happened to me, because it has taught me to love in a way that I didn't know was possible.
Interesting.
Right. Unconditionally.
Unconditionally. It's you can't just take a time out. You can't just go take a breather. You and your wife are having a dispute. You can separate and come back. When you have a child who has an autism diagnosis, love is 24/7, 365, and whatever time is left after that, you have to go there as well.
Wow.
Right. So
that's powerful.
I want to bring Claude in. Claude, how's this impacted? Because you sounds like you're in agreement with that, but I want to get your take on your feelings and how it has impacted you and your family.
No, absolutely. Just to echo my brother Tariq, but before I start, right, I just want to say that it really, the saying that God don't give you nothing that you can't handle, and I think that really speaks volume, because we don't pick our child, right, to be on a spectrum or not. So we're given that. So I think with just that, God just realized that what kind of parents, my ex-wife and everyone else will be. So I think that's why he blessed us with Caden, who was diagnosed at 15 months. And the reason why we noticed the difference between him and my oldest, which is he's a junior, because he just wasn't, the signs were there, right? He wasn't looking us in his eye and in our eyes. He was just looking away. He was flaring his arms. You could just tell like it wasn't with the same behavior as my oldest. So my ex-wife and I was like, you know what, let's go get him checked out. We got him checked out after 15 months, and then pretty much the fight was on, from constant ABA, different services. And to Tariq's point, it's just really, really developed a lot of tolerance, a lot of love, and just a lot of patience. Because we like Tariq said, we're not experts at this, right? We don't have the education, or we didn't. It's slowly right now, slowly but surely we are getting on board with it. And
I'm going to push back on when you say you're not experts. You may not be experts with titles, like a lot of in this, but you guys are experts in this because you're living it.
We're living it.
And living experience is much fun.
But for the individuals who are listening, who are not a part of that, this dealing with this every day, could someone explain to them exactly what it is? What is autism? Because I think we use a lot of terms, and people are like, okay, I don't know what is it as a parent? How does it manifest itself as a parent?
Did you?
I was going to say, but if you can answer that, but there's also spectrums of it, different levels of it.
So I made sure I made a list of some points, because I know that we could get into the weeds with a subject such as autism for this reason, right? Because Autism, unfortunately, there is no answer to that question, right? There is no answer to that because what autism is what autism is what autism is to you in your specific situation, right? So one of the things that I do tell people is patience is paramount because there is no look to autism. You can't look at a child that's on the spectrum for the most part unless they are having some sort of behavioral display and say, hey, that child has almost like if you see a child with Down syndrome, let's say, based on their profile, you can almost kind of gather like, okay, and I remember one time, and I'm going to be extremely transparent on this thing. I hope I don't, I remember one time my wife, because she's my support, I'm her support, and I remember one time my wife came to me and she cried and she said, I kind of wish our child had Down syndrome because she was just so tired of explaining, and a lot of people don't take into account the psychological effect that having to explain why your child that looks like a typical child is not acting like a typical child, right? There's an immense amount of emotions that go into that. And a lot of times with families with children on the spectrum, they tend to alienate and even ostracize their very selves because families, especially in the Black community, we are family until it's time to become family, right? We get so caught up on who's bringing the ribs to the cookout that we don't take into account who's bringing the emotions to the cookout, right? They are so disconnected and distant when it comes to actually toiling with their family members who are struggling. So to answer the original question, what does autism mean for us? What it means for us is a man who's 18 is psychologically and cognitively a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old. That's what it means for us. What it means for us with our 10-year-old is something totally different. Right? So it's a wide spectrum of what autism is and what it manifests itself as.
There is no one size fits all.
There is no one size fits all, which is why we have to have these types of dialogues.
I actually have a cousin who has autism, and he graduated from college, and he's a graphic artist, and he doesn't live by himself, but he's able to live and maintain majority of his functions, like take care of himself and everything like that. But again, like he's able to do a lot of different things on his own.
617-282-0685, 617-282-0685. You're listening to At the Round Table with MAMLEO. In studio, my brother Tariq Chambers here. We're talking about autism. On the other line is my other brother, Claude DeFay. These gentlemen are active police officers here in the city of Boston. I think sometimes we think that certain things affect a certain population of people that it doesn't affect. This is somewhat, and I'm not equating it to like cancer, where no one is immune from it, regardless of how much money you have or your status in life. But Claude, I know you want to say, I'm gonna let you finish your say, but I also want to put this question out there. What services, because I know I've watched and you guys have taught me, this is why it was so important. I'm glad to have this conversation, and we're going to make this not just a month, Autism Month, but we want to keep this
I would love that.
Information.
I would actually like to do this more often.
Absolutely.
Because our people struggle for not having. Our people struggle with not having the knowledge, right? And there are 5 points that I want to make today that I refuse to leave here without leaving that out there, if not for anybody else, but for the people who need to hear it.
So Claude, go ahead. You want to say something? Good. Claude?
No, just it's just a growing community. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yep.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Oh yeah, beautiful. No, it's just with the authors, it's just a growing community, and the thing is, like, it's a lot of unknowns, right? A lot of unknowns, because with my 11-year-old Caden, he was diagnosed. Obviously, he was nonverbal in the beginning. He's much verbal now, but of course has a long way to go. And I think with him not being verbal as much, his communication, the lack of communication, triggers a lot of other behaviors, like from behavioral, psychological, right? Because you could see that his lack of communication, he's frustrated, he's stressed because he can't address or communicate like the typical person, and it just frustrates him. So it's an ongoing learning experience.
Yeah.
And I have to point out this because my ex-wife, she's actually in Florida right now on a conference, just like an autism conference, and also with this whole experience, right? And Tariq actually had a chance to meet her. Was that she actually was able to found her own gym, a sensory gym where obviously kids with special needs could go to, and then how that developed, right? I'll just give you guys a quick story. So she went to I think it was like a launch kind of area, like one of those like play settings.
Mm-hmm.
And Caden, I believe he was like maybe like 3, 4, 5 at the time. And of course, not knowing what he's doing, he actually went to another child. I think picked the child up, and he was playing with him, but he was he was being a little aggressive, right? Mm-hmm. So the father took Caden and just threw him on one of those bouncy things, and that just really just killed everything. Thank God I wasn't there, because Larry, you'll be probably investigating my case, because when my wife called me, she was just like, at the time, she was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this happened," and she was bawling in tears, and then we just didn't know what to do. So and then obviously she gathered some information, and she started the gym. I think it's been in existence for at least 3-4 years now.
Right.
I could be wrong, but probably a little longer. But yeah, it's just based off that, right? So just us having a son with on the spectrum created that.
Yeah. No, and
so now kids with special needs, and
and she was recently acknowledged. She was recently acknowledged. No, like she was just recently acknowledged by the Boston Celtics on our Heroes Among Her. I saw her. I was watching the game. I'm like, and they put her name out there. I'm like, wow, Claude. I said it's not a coincidence because not many people are in that field. But that's why I was asking about the services that are available. But I want to grab. We had a call on the line. Go take this call. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
Peace. This is Brother Jamal calling back.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to say to these two brothers, man, salute to y'all on the black fatherhood tip. We know what the stereotypes are,
yes.
With fathers who are not in the household and everything. So not only you defying that, but, going above and beyond with, these special circumstances. So I salute you, first of all, for that, for doing, what else you're supposed to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So God bless you and your families.
Good.
So 2 points I just wanted to give to y'all real quick. One is, we've seen around the country, with both of y'all being police, we've seen around the country sometimes where law enforcement interacts with people suffering from these various conditions, doesn't know how to react, and now it ends in a tragedy. Yeah. So one, I would encourage you both, if you haven't already, to use your own experiences to maybe help the BPD develop some training or enhance whatever training may already exist of what would happen if they encounter a person with autism who may not be responding in the manner that normally goes on. So that's one point. Then the other point is, as has been mentioned here, there's various different types of autism, the spectrums and all this. One thing that has always fascinated me is how somebody could get quote unquote robbed of one ability, but then excel in another. Mm-hmm. So we've seen some people who end up being violin virtuosos, or mathematicians, or computer coders or whatever. So have y'all experienced any of that as well? So that's it for me. Y'all have a blessed morning, and God bless y'all.
Thank you, Jamal. So just to Jamal's point there quickly, I'll let you answer it, and we have another caller on the other line, is that what he said is so important, and because what Claude said a moment ago about his son and the gentleman not knowing that his son was on the spectrum, didn't understand that, right? There's no neon sign.
The stories, we don't have enough time to even talk about. Right. That's actually commonplace.
Right.
Things
but
like that
I say that because, four of us, Dr. Bradley, myself, you, and Claude, we're former law enforcement. You guys, is that when you arrive,
say something, right?
Yeah, go ahead. 1 second. Yeah, when you arrive at a call and you don't know, you see an 18-year-old and acting a certain way, you don't know that person is on the spectrum. So,
we'll let
let's
the caller go. I would definitely like to touch on these things.
Pastor Karen, how are you?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Hold it. I think there's a radio on in the house. Let me just turn it off real quick.
Okay.
So good morning,
Good morning, Pastor K.
everyone.
Good morning.
And good morning, a special good morning to the dads who
morning.
are on here this morning sharing their stories. I'm going to try to make it quick, though I do tend to be long-winded. I'll just be honest about that. But I'm going to try to make it quick because I love listening to what you guys are talking about. But Dr. Bradley and Larry, I think you know my daughter. She's the youngest of our three.
Yes.
And in a couple of weeks, she graduates with her master's degree in applied behavioral analysis, which is ABA, right? Which is the work
Amazing.
people who
Amazing.
work with folks
People on the spectrum.
on the spectrum. And to see her, so we've had like a bird's eye view of her coming home when she was doing her training, let's say, and talking about a kid that day that peed on her or did whatever. And I would be like, so how does that make you feel? And she's like, Mom, I can't help it. We were trying to make it to the bathroom. This was a new skill for him, and he accidentally peed on me. It is what it is. Or to hear her talking about antecedents, and it's just kind of amazing to listen to her. But then I got a chance to watch her in a social setting that we were all in, and obviously it's not her job, and there was a parent that was really struggling with his maybe 5-year-old. And she kind of walked over to the parent, and she's like, may I? And the parent was just so frustrated, he stepped back. And she knelt down, eye level with this little guy. I don't know what she said to him, but, within seconds, they were holding hands, and they were walking out of the room to a quiet space because I guess he had been triggered by the noise in the environment. Wow. But I say all that to say, like, my work in mental health, I can honestly say I love it. I wouldn't want to be doing anything else. And when I see my daughter loving her work, it just makes me so happy. And where she did her training, her internship, was down in Wareham. And she would come home and she was like, as soon as I get my degree, I'm finding a job in the black community.
Wow,
I'm tired of teaching. I'm tired of teaching beautiful white kids. They need it, but she was like, I'm tired of it.
And
so,
maybe Pastor Kim, we can plug her in with Tariq and Claude, if you don't mind.
I would love that
because that would be helpful. Claude's wife has started her own business dealing with that because there isn't really support, and that's why I wanted to, because I know Tariq and Claude have really taught me a lot working with them. I could kind of read from them what type of day they were having from coming in, because the job is stressful enough, right? Yep. But not having that background, I would be lost.
I also think it's critical that and Jamal made this point, that somewhere, somehow, we translate that into Boston PD training. So, because I can recall, I'm over 60, brother. It's not going to stay long. So I got to think, I can recall. I'm sorry, man. I can recall as a police officer, many times going to a call and not having a clue of what I'm doing, and I'm just actually winging it, and I'm saying to myself, man, I could really use some training here because I don't know what I'm doing. It's going to be much more severely damaging this child or whatever, So I think that having parents who are actually police officers and having access to people like the pastor's daughter, and kind of bringing all that together to put in a nice structured training curriculum for police officers would be extremely helpful.
Absolutely. I wanted to get you and Claude's responsible.
So there are so many layers to this thing that I want to tackle, and I want to make sure I touch on them enough. This is just the start of it today. Yeah, please, let's continue this dialogue. This volley is important. One of the biggest things that I want to highlight is I don't know if you remember, when I first walked in, I was talking about how I wanted to get my PhD. You're right. One of the primary reasons why I wanted to go back and get my PhD is not because I need my PhD to be able to articulate my experience in what as a department we should be doing, but I think I would be remiss in failing to highlight that no one listens to you unless someone says you're the one to be listened to, right?
Amen.
Wow.
And
Amen.
so,
That's powerful.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and so for that reason is why I want to do this, because one of my biggest fears, and I'm sure Claude will attest to this, is one of the biggest fears that you have as a parent with a child with autism. Touching back on what I said earlier, there is no look to it, and one of my biggest fears is that a police officer, just like myself, is going to hurt my son. I struggle with that. I live in fear of that.
That's very possible.
Because it's very possible because. The only reason why you potentially don't hurt your child is because you know them. You know them, and you know that everything from the lighting in the room could be a trigger. The sun being shining in a certain way could trigger them. So you know that. But the average person who has a family of their own that wants to go home to their family only sees an individual who is dysregulated. And what I want to do is to be able to spearhead that training. I want to be able to write about how we need to be more patient in our approach, more understanding of the totality of the situation, but we also have to take more of a holistic approach when it comes to this, because everything from systemic racism to your social class, all of that plays a part in the product that, that you're receiving in that moment.
In your community, right? Because I know you had to move out of the city to help get the resources.
So here we are. These are the things that we want to touch on, right? These are the things that we want to touch on, because I was even talking to my brother Claude. I was telling my brother Claude one time we were having a personal thing, Claude. I'm not going to expose our personal conversations, but I was telling him, don't drop your head when it comes to you going through a divorce or anything like that, because you know what it is? A lot of people don't understand that when you have children with autism or any sort of disability, I don't want to make it like a, one size fits all, it's just autism, right? When you have a child with a disability, marriages automatically struggle, automatically, right? So just because
they struggle
even normal kids, exactly.
Even with normal kids,
get divorced,
but it amplifies, these things. So
extra layer to it.
So I say all that to say this, right? We're in a situation where these types of conversations that may make people uncomfortable is the only way that we're going to eventually get to a point where we can see profound results in our community, especially because some of the things that I'm about to bring up in perhaps the latter half of this segment is how this affects Black and brown children far more than their white counterparts on many different fronts. So
let's.
I'm gonna get off and listen, you guys.
Thank you,
bye-bye.
Pastor Karen. We're gonna make that connection if you don't mind with your daughter, because I think it'll be helpful.
I don't mind at all.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
Good morning. I have a question for you guests.
Yeah.
And my question is, minus the support, what other cooperation are you getting from either the mental health side or the non-mental health side? What more cooperation are you, if you get any cooperation at all, to deal with helping and understanding autism, so the people like me can be more educated about it too?
When you say what supports are we getting, that's the thing. There are no supports that are just readily available for anybody. You have to go out there and expose yourself, because that's really what it feels like. A lot of times when you have a child, you don't want to tell people like, hey, this is what my child is struggling with, right? But the only way you're going to be able to tap into resources is to be proud of your situation.
And I think too, for us, that are in law enforcement, that are former or current, the phones are blazing this morning, so folks, be patient, because you guys have really driven, and that's good that people are interested in this conversation. Is that we every day are tasked with dealing with everyone else's problems
all day, every day,
and now we have.
And you're burnt out by the time you get home.
You're burnt out, but now we're in a situation where normally we go in and we at least kind of get it calmed down, and now we are tasked with at our own homes with something that we have no control over, and we're used to being able to control the dialogue, the conversation, and we're at a loss. Claude, you wanted to? I'm gonna get you to weigh in because I know Tariq, and then we'll take this.
Go ahead, big dog.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So just to speak on the department piece, and just good credit to them because they do have training and session with called obviously our in service, and I'm sure other departments too added that into their curriculum. But to Tariq's point earlier, we just need to create more awareness because, of course, the department does their check box. They check their box, right, when it comes to that. But it's on a higher level. But we need to be able to kind of peel the layers back because, again, the spectrum is so wide.
Right.
We need to have more education around that.
And this is why, why I appreciate MAMLEO continuing to have this broadcast, so we have this platform. You gentlemen understand this. These conversations, we do this every week. We come in here on our own, give our time to organization of giving back to be able to have this dialogue. And we're going to grab this other caller. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
Hi, how are you guys? Good morning.
Good morning. That sounds like
I
like
just wanted to say
voice.
thank you. It is. How are you, Larry? I'm actually the wife of that handsome guy with the jacket on.
I was like, I know that voice. Who is that?
He's like, man, that sounds familiar.
That voice sounds super familiar.
Okay.
No, as I'm watching, I wanted to say thank you guys for just shining light on this particular topic. And I just wanted to just chime in for a second. And
Sure.
I just wanted to say, I do think that it is very important that you guys get some training on this. And I just wanted to highlight, and I don't know if Tariq was remembering, years ago when we were deep and really active, being activists for autism, with Autism Speak, we actually had to pick up a young man who was on the spectrum.
Yeah.
He was similar to, like you were saying, your cousin, a little higher functioning. He lived on his own. He was able to do things for himself. But we were in the car and we were taking him to an event, and he just happened to ask, what do you do? The typical, what do you do for a living? And Street happened to say a police officer, and it was like he got so scared. It was like he had to pull over for a second, and I'm like, okay, whoa, what is going on? What is this? So, we're talking and we're calming him down, and he ends up finally getting calm. We're able to pull the information out of him and see what was wrong. He had a traumatic experience. And this is the crazy part. It wasn't even really with a police officer. It was with a security guard.
Wow.
I think it was at Fenway, I believe, or something like
it was
that.
at Fenway Park.
And they definitely weren't trained as security guards. And whether they realized it or not, they ended up arresting him, tackling him down. I don't even remember what he said why. It was something so silly. And just from that, all police officers, anybody, security, anybody in a uniform or anybody like that,
with a
he
patch.
was terrified. Anybody with a badge. It created this big trauma for him. And it just, at that moment, helped us to realize, wow, you have to really definitely be trained, and what you do matters, because something like us, the thing is, it takes them a while. When they get worked up, it takes them a while to calm down.
Yeah.
Versus and it could be something so small where just leave it alone. No, they can't leave it alone. It takes them a while. Sometimes it may take a couple of days for them to finally either come to grips or just let it go. And as we're trying to talk to him and tell him hey, we understand you have this bad experience, not all police officers are like that. They are still safe. And as much as we tried, he wasn't getting it, but I think by the end of the night, talking with him and Tariq being able to show him, I'm your friend, and he was open to him at the end, and okay, I think it took a day of just hanging out with him to show him, not all police officers are bad. And it broke my heart, because I'm if this man's in trouble,
right,
who is he going to call?
Right.
I'm thinking.
Who is he going to call?
I'm thinking the exact same thing.
This is why I commend you all three of you, for this morning, for sharing this. And matter of fact, I'm getting text messages from people saying that you guys should have your own broadcast on monthly.
Do it.
And listen, I always say we will relinquish this airway because this is the MAMLEO broadcast.
That's right.
When you guys want to come in and talk about this and how it's impacting. And Shirley, I appreciate you calling in as well, because when Treek and I had the pleasure of working with him every day, but I know at that time that you were dealing with this at home.
On our
and
own,
I think people don't understand, what you're going through your day, right? That's why we always try to support my brother, why I love it. And same thing with Claude. When they're in need, it is not just their issue, and it should not be this because it wears on the family. And if we call ourselves family, we just can't pick and choose when we do that. So I'm glad people are calling in and becoming more aware, but it can't be a moment. It has to be a movement.
It has to be a movement.
Exactly.
Yes.
One of the things that I'm sitting back and I'm listening to all this as a former police officer, but I was also a director of climate and safety in Randolph Public School System. You see, and so there's a school element here too. There's that side. How you dealing with teachers? How teachers dealing with it? How is people bullying these children?
Absolutely.
How is that being addressed? There's a lot of tentacles here that we can
and
talk about.
I want to have Rhodes where he's in here. I want to because Claude is Haitian American as well as Rhodes. Rhodes is one of our co-hosts in the broadcasting. In the Haitian community, you also have Claude. He's bilingual. He speaks, but in the Haitian community, is this discussed because a lot of times there's the language barrier as well as
I'm sure
and the culture. Culture is a big factor.
Yes,
I'm Jamaican, so I understand.
That is
culture.
a big culture. That is a big factor. The culture. The idea is no, the child is not crazy. The child just needs to be disciplined or whatever.
Yep, just beat them into submission.
Exactly. So they still go with that whole slave mentality. But I want to say that one of the things that they're doing is they're empowering the people with autism to speak up for themselves. Okay. So one of the kids that with autism actually wanted to make a bracelet or some sort of T-shirt that people with autism could wear, so people could easily identify if they see them. They know what's going on because they can recognize either the cancer bracelet or the T-shirt that says, "Hey, I'm autistic." But so that way, when people
they do that now in the airport,
So
with a sunflower.
But my concern, I've been from the African American Southern community. We saw that as this kid has a special problem. You see what I mean? So there's so many. Which I asked the question, what is it? Because there's so many definitions of what constitutes autism.
Like they're verbal, nonverbal.
Yeah, exactly.
High functioning, low functioning.
It's kind of hard, and I recall when I was at Randolph Public Schools, trying to wrap my mind around it because we had kids from in different spectrums, and I didn't really understand it enough to say, okay, how to deal with this. I had to reach out to parents who were actually dealing with it on a daily basis. Like, I need some help here.
So I want to, and I'm going to let I want to, because this hour is getting away from us. I want to find out from all three of you. I want to point this question. I'm going to start with Shirley and ladies first. What is it that you think people can be doing to be more helpful? What services are there for you? I want to start with you, and I want to get this answer from each of you, and then I'll let you get into what you want to say.
Yeah, because you said you had 5 things you wanted to make sure we learned.
Oh man, more than that, but yeah.
This is going to be a regular segment.
Yeah, I would love that.
I promise you.
More than you know.
You can see that there is an interest in it. The phones are ringing off the hook. Shirley, we'll start with you.
I think it depends. I think to basically first ask questions. I think that's just ask questions. Whoever the person you're dealing with, because like we said, it's different for each of them, and we see it very clearly between our two. They're both very different on the spectrum. One's nonverbal, one is verbal, and higher functioning than the other. But I think ask questions to the parents. We're not going to be offended. We want to tell you about our kids.
We want our kid to be invited to things.
Yes,
you're not embarrassed by it.
I want to invite you to a birthday party. However, a lot of things they don't talk about is the diets of our children, things like that. It's so much to get into. But to say, for instance, my family kind of knows like they don't have we don't do a lot of sugar things because they go bonkers. So it's like ask questions and try to include them. The more questions you ask, the more you're going to know. And a lot of people feel like, I don't want to ask questions. I don't want to offend them. You're not going to offend them. No. Ask the hard questions. 2, I feel like a lot of parents, I need to say this, who feel like there's nothing out there because we were in this for years. We're just now kind of seeing, and like I said, our oldest is 18. There's so much stuff out there. They try to not tell you about.
Well, it
Like,
depends on
there's
your social
PCAs.
class.
Exactly. There's PCAs that you can have people come into your home,
To help you.
out a couple of times. There's hospice where it's like, okay, it gets to a point, you get
Respite.
caretaker burnout.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
you just need a weekend. I need a weekend to just sleep or just whatever it is. You can bring your kids to certain facilities.
Wow.
They don't tell you these type of things. They don't tell you, even though you have your own health insurance, you can have Mass Health as a secondary insurance.
Wow.
So sometimes we've had to use it a couple times where I'm like, thank God we have Mass Health, where our insurance covers a certain portion, but then Mass Health will come in and take care of that other portion. So it's less out of your pocket.
Right.
They don't tell you about how when you're taking them to these appointments for ABA, you have to pay copays. Our copay sometimes for 2 kids is like $500 for the week.
Wow.
With all the specialties that they have. But they don't tell you with certain insurances there's a cap for the year on it. So if you
So
reach
they will
that
just
cap,
continue to
let's
charge
say
you.
they'll still charge you.
Wow.
We didn't learn that until literally 5 years ago.
The hard
That
way.
once we hit that cap, hey,
We don't have to pay that.
that
Right.
April.
Right.
I don't have to pay you nothing until next year.
Right.
So it's like there's so much information out there. But I feel like even when you're looking it up, it's still hard to get.
Right.
Talking and asking questions.
Okay.
We found so much by other parents
Well,
just by talking.
And
Word
that's
of
what I
mouth.
said. We want to make this a regular segment because that is important to help the Claude. Same question to you, because
Yeah, I think for me, like I would encourage parents to or anyone that knows someone with autism, just to not be afraid, right? Just to accept and acknowledge that what it is that you're dealing with, because I want to be just transparent as well. Because I remember when it began with my son, I'm like, because we weren't educated, we didn't know what was going on. We just knew that he was on the spectrum, so he was making different noises. Again, he was just behaving a little bit different from the typical youth. So I wasn't like, it was kind of like embarrassing in some way in the beginning because I was just not knowing what was going on. So I would say definitely accept what it is, understand that this is what is on your plate, and then that would allow the asking the questions, seeking the help, because then you'll know what you're dealing with, right?
Yeah.
Because if you don't accept it, you're ashamed, then it's going to kind of refrain you from seeking out the help. So I think that's number one for me. I would say that, like Shalane said, like there's a lot of things online. They're not gonna throw them down your throat, but they're definitely gonna there's definitely enough information. If you ask the questions, you could get the answers. And just want to kind of point one thing out. For example, I have to increase my insurance from HMO to PPO. That's an extra $600 a month, just because for them to allow the different services that we, they needed. So, but now we just gotta, because again, this is like we got to make this an ongoing thing because there's so many layers.
There's so many layers.
That's why I said, we've got about 7 minutes. That's why I said,
we would be failing the community
if we just did this a one-off.
If we did this a one-off.
But this is why it's the
especially our community.
This is why it's the MAMLEO broadcast. Why it is for our members. This is why when I saw that sign, I thought about you two brothers. I'm like, I have to have them in. But this is just autism isn't just a month for you all. It's every single day.
I'm committed to this. If Claude and Shalane is committed to it. Because I think they bring an immense amount of knowledge just from their personal experiences, right? Because my personal experience as a father is far different than Shalane's experience as a mom who is thriving in the dental field, could make 6 figures if she wanted to, but she was so humble to say, you know what, our family comes first. Yeah. And so, when in our community, when I have family members who will say to me like, well, why would you have your wife stay home? It boils my blood because, first of all, this is the first time I'm seeing you in 3 years, and that's your first opinion of my situation. Right. So, but bigger than that, they don't see the layers of love in that.
Well, and also support. This is why from Claude, from Charlene, from you, I've learned so much from you guys about autism, right? Just from being around and seeing what your day is like. I have a better understanding of it and a better respect of it, and a more of appreciation that I'm not going through it.
Yep.
And people don't.
And these are healthy conversations.
Absolutely,
these are healthy conversations.
It's not a judgment conversation.
the things that I wanted to the things that I wanted to make sure, because I know we're running out of time. I know you asked a question, but I'm gonna skip that question, right? Because I want to make sure that I say this right. So some of the things that I wanted to make sure I got on here, I made it like a little checklist. Is we have to remember that Black and brown boys are 4 times more likely to be diagnosed than girls.
Wow.
Right. Black children are often diagnosed later, right? On average, 1 to 6 years later than white children, delaying critical interventions. The earlier you start interventions with autism, the better the more of a fighting chance your child has to be able to assimilate to their typical functioning peers. Another stat is 40% of children with autism are nonverbal or have minimal verbal communications. So what we need to understand as a collective is that when children get to the point of frustration where they start to manifest some behavior, understand that isn't the moment for you to make it a personal thing. And I struggle with that. And I've been dealing with this my entire life, really, right? You
have a high stress job.
And that's another layer of things. Right. You know, if you find yourself in a managerial or supervisor position and you have a subordinate, whatever you want to call it, that comes to you and says, hey, this is my struggle. I need you to humble yourself enough to take a holistic lens in that situation and understand that what they're saying is not what they're saying. Right. If that makes sense. Don't let that go over your head, right? Another stat is Shalane will appreciate this one. There are always co-occurring conditions, right? Up to 70%, or at least of children on the spectrum have one or more additional issues, such as ADHD, anxiety, GI disorders. This is why she's telling you about, you know, they'll hold their bowels for days. I'm talking about days. So when you see those behaviors, a lot of times they're just constipated. A lot of times they're just having stomach aches. They're uncomfortable. But one of the things that we just learned is that a lot of children on the spectrum suffer with some form of epilepsy. So they'll be having seizures, and it might look like they're just continuously laughing or they're continuously twitching or fidgeting, but that's a seizure, epileptic episode that they're having. So again, there's so much layers to this thing that I think my brother Larry said something. This can't just be a moment; it has to be a movement. Absolutely. And if no other venue will support the foundational steps needed for this movement, I think this is the place.
Listen, you guys own this. Pastor Hobbs, I think it's only appropriate that you offer a prayer for these families, what they're going through, if you wouldn't mind, sir.
Wow. Father God, we do bless you. We give you praise for this preordained divine appointment. God, we thank you for just these men that are willing, and women, and just a community that's willing to be able to embrace this very important issue. So we lift them up in the name of Jesus. We lift them up, both the husbands, the wives, and the community around these special children that you've created. So Father, we thank you for the platform. We thank you for the opportunity to expand this conversation, that would not just be a conversation, but that would help us to embody your unconditional love that we demonstrate for all of your creation. In Jesus' name.
Amen. Well, we are out of time. This is part 1, and I promise you guys, we need to schedule this for a part of the segment of the roundtable, and we will make sure that this conversation continues.
I'm committed. Yeah.
We love you all. This has been enlightening for us and informative.
Very educational for me.
Thank you all for sharing and being so open and honest for this. This is your broadcast. Yeah. So it is here for you. This is a vessel for you to do that. You've been listening to At the Round Table with MAMLEO. I want to thank you all for listening and learning today. And with that said, Dr. Bradley,
be blessed.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Claude. Thanks, Shelley. Appreciate you.
Man.
Of course. Hi, brother.
Never get the chance to meet ya. No, I came up from the bottom, always rooting for the underdog. I Wrote 300 songs in 1 year, Boogie will tell you I'm on it. I got unreleased songs for days, they don't want it. Eat any MC in the game, it ain't a challenge. If your music reflects who you are, then you's a coward. I can see through the lies you ain't living what you spitting. If your money's so long, why your dog's in prison? Why your baby mom's stripping, why your mom's still living in that same broken home that you used to sell piffin'. You ain't gotta lie to me to sell me a track. You ain't gotta rock fake jewels or walk around strapped. I respect artists getting money, but love them for spitting crack. And the fact that one track can move a family out the trap. It's a dream for us lost souls brought up in the mix. I'm motivated by the artists coming out in my midst. And the artists that paved the way when I didn't exist. Music's a skyscraper, I'm just trying to add a couple bricks. This is for the dreamers. They say I am a dreamer. Cause I still believe that anything is possible as long as you work hard. Hustle real hard, hustle real hard. Hustle real hard, hustle so if I never see ya, never get the chance to meet ya. No, I came up from the bottom, always rooting for the unknown.